Thank you for joining me. This episode will be about the energy of September. Now, we're already about a week in, and I like to do that. I like to allow people to get into the feeling of the month and to maybe start to test their own intuition out and to do your own kind of heavy lifting. We can get too caught up, I think, in having other people be the authority of who we are. So if I'm going to do energy updates or forecasting the weather, the energy weather, I like it to be where you can see what's cooking for you and then have whatever I'm saying maybe be validating or help you to say, I got that. I felt that. I might not have known what to do with it, but that's okay. Eventually you do. So this month of September, I am so happy to say we'll have a much more relaxed energy than July and August. I felt like I was in a pressure cooker. I don't know about you, but I felt like every button I had that I thought I had released, or every trigger that, was under the surface that I thought I had dealt with, definitely came up to let me know that there were still certain layers that needed to be addressed. And this month feels so much more freeing. Exactly that, like what I just did. It feels like there's room to take a breath. And in doing that, we get to expand. So that is much of the message of September. It will be about expansion and it's about truth. And you know what? Not everybody is going to bring their truth. So let's stop expecting everybody to do that. It becomes so exhausting for us to feel like we have to, not that we have to, but that people operate at the same level that we do. And they just don't. So I don't know, the quicker we can admit that to ourselves, we can be willing to admit that not everybody is flying or at the frequency or the resonance that you're riding at. It's just completely cosmically impossible because we need all the different varying energies to keep the world moving around and to keep our universe connected and for our own growth, because I don't know that we would grow the best if we were always communicating with those that were at the level we are at. Somebody said to me last week, well, you want to work with those who can see things at the level you see things at. And I'm like, oh my goodness, no. That would be completely boring to me, to constantly just be having a yes conversation of, oh, of course, yes, that's how I see it. Oh, absolutely, that's how I see it. Oh, you experienced that? So did I. And to me, how is that helpful? I think a lot of the times our expansion and our growth is learning to connect and work and respect those that aren't at the same belief systems or ideology or even their and our level of movement. So many times people compare themselves to what other people are doing. Oh, I don't run that fast, or I only work out 3 days a week. I haven't been to a gym, COVID aside, I haven't been to a gym in well over a year. And that kind of internal competition, but also comparison, just depletes who we are. It has us limiting who we are because we're constantly looking externally to see what someone else might do. So from a frequency standpoint, I think it's the same thing. I don't only want to work with those who see where I am. Besides, as a coach, shouldn't I be working with those that are asking for their expansion and growth? And certainly I learn by working with people, but this month will be about your expansion. And I do hope you're ready. And the reason I put it that way is there will always be energy expansions. We will always be going through growth, sometimes a little bit of a retraction, but most of the time we're moving forward. And it's going to keep happening whether you want it to or not. So the reason I say I hope you're ready for this is because there's a little bit of accountability and responsibility about being a human that I keep repeating over and over and over again, hoping that people will eventually arrive in a space where you find that to be exciting, where you find that to be something that you can participate in, that you can say, ooh, time of expansion, let me see what I can do with that. So this particular month, though, is also going to bring, I'm calling it like a spacey feeling, because it's like being out of your body. If you've ever had really low blood sugar and you were like, whoa, I need to get some sustenance on board, this can be similar. Or if you've done a really deep meditation and you come back, you're like, whoa, where's Earth? I don't know if I can find my planet. So there will be moments of this. Now, sometimes people attribute this to the stress level that they have in their life, and that's certainly possible. However, when we have an energy expansion that's contributing to it, it feels slightly different. It feels like, for me, I have a hard time finding words when I try to describe something, or I love analogies. And when I'm trying to make one and then it goes in one chakra and out the other, I know, ooh, we got something popping here. Something within my own expansion is happening. And I love it. But it can make it awkward sometimes. So there's going to be moments where that happens. And I just want you to be kind to yourself and maybe get a little excited. Now, if you haven't had lunch, please get something to eat. Throw some protein in your face, get a little bit of natural sugar in there, and please avoid the caffeine as the boost, because when the energy is such that you already feel disconnected, if you add caffeine to it, it can create more of a floaty sensation and more of a feeling of, where did I put my body? So a little bit of spaciness, ungrounded. So whatever your practice is, and if you don't have one, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, of how to get grounded, that would be really helpful. This time is also emotional. Now, that's also tricky because we've been going through so much pressure, and through COVID, through elections here in the United States, through unrest, protests all over the world, it's teary. I know this weekend I saw this little tiny mouse who was kind of struggling to still be here on Earth. And normally I go right in. I can take care of that and help them get whatever they need, help them cross if that's the case. I just couldn't. I walked away and I left it up to poor Mike. I'm like, no, I'm tapping out. I can't do this, because the feeling was so palpable that this being, what it needed was so great in that itty bitty body that I just walked away from it. Now, had he not been there, and I could trust that he was going to handle it, and Mike's my partner, for those of you who are like, who the heck's Mike? If I didn't trust that he would handle it compassionately, I would have stuck in there. Wouldn't be with him either, but that's a whole nother story. So that moment, though, was big. Energetically, emotionally, it was much bigger than I'm used to experiencing. And I knew I had to walk away and collect myself. And that's what I'm talking about. There'll be these rushes of energy that just come in, and all of a sudden you're crying and you don't know why you're crying. Please allow that to be there. And granted, if it's in a work situation or, even a meeting, with all the back to school stuff that's happening right now, I would love if we could show our human selves more often. But if it's not a time where that's capable, 3 deep breaths, 3 really deep breaths into the belly. Luckily, we have to keep breathing to stay upright. So if you're taking deep breaths, it's not necessarily going to be something that's seen as weird or awkward, or you don't have to step out of the meeting. You could just give yourself that space. You're going to need it because the emotion that's coming through, there's an energy body of yours, that's the emotional body, and there isn't a soul on this planet who's going to be unaffected by this. Even if it seems like they don't have connection to their emotions, they may just be acting more irrational or short-circuited. Yeah, I know, great, right? But you don't get, there's no real free pass to energy effect on this planet. It's just the way we're wired as souls and humans. It's whether you want to take stock of it and help yourself that makes the difference. So there'll be a lot of questioning of your values. What's your direction? Sense of purpose. Please remember that our life purpose, at least from yours truly's perspective, that we all have the same purpose, and that's to arrive in self-acceptance. And that path to it, each of us will have a different path. Kindness will always be part of this. It will always be necessary for us to use kindness as a way to self-acceptance, self-appreciation. So, but there will be some questioning of, is this work the work I want to be doing? Are these the people that I want to be collaborating with? This is a good thing to have all the time, but the energy of September is taking it to a whole nother level. It will poke at your doubtful places. So those places within your own psyche, within your own emotional centers, where you have doubts, it's going to poke it. And there's, again, no real way around it except to look at it and to question, is that true? Like when the doubts come up in your head, ask, is that true? Or is this my subconscious that's giving me a little bit of a runaround and maybe feeling scared itself, that we that growing is in and of itself scary. So remind yourself, have a little short list of what do you do well? What is it about yourself that when doubt shows up, that you can look at it and say, okay, I've got some data for you. When I felt doubtful in the past, I, one of the things I know about myself, like I know for me, I will always find the workaround. I might need to go for a walk to find that workaround. I might need to meditate. I might need to crank the tunes and clean my kitchen, but I will always come up with a work through that will help me to solve whatever conundrum I'm facing. So when I'm feeling particularly vulnerable, I will say to myself, you know that you always figure this out. You have 100% track record already of showing up every day. You will do this. And you will too. So how can you do that? Have the list. Are you someone who is really good at asking other people for help, not their advice? I'm not looking for you to go to someone to solve your problems for you. What I'm looking for is, can you say to someone, I'm feeling a little wobbly today. Can we talk for 3 minutes? Whatever that may be. Are you someone that is a good cook, you know, is putting together a recipe, something that you do, or building something with wood, or I don't know, finishing that book. Sometimes just finishing a book I've been reading, I feel like I've accomplished the greatest thing in my life. And that's because completion feels pretty cool. So there will be some poking at your doubtful places, but if you look at your doubtful places, there's less places to poke, right? Right. So BS is not going to work anymore. I'm here to tell you the BS, whether it's BSing yourself, whether it's someone else who's trying to give you a little bit of bullshit, it's just not going to work anymore. It's like our ability to see it and to process it has gone through the roof. Now, this can be challenging, though, because some of the people we thought we could trust are now presenting themselves as the ultimate BSers. And that's hard, because then again, you have to be honest and ask yourself, are these the people that I like to associate with, family members or not? And what is the level of connection that I'm going to have with them? Because it might not be a hard stop. Maybe it's not that you don't work with them anymore, or you don't talk to them anymore, but maybe it's a case of you backing up so that you can figure out, are you BSing anyone? Are you BSing yourself? Because getting clear in this month would be a gift to yourself, to those in your world, to the universe even, because everything goes out, right? We have a ripple effect. Everything goes out exponentially. So if July and August were the months that really pushed our buttons, this is the ejection seat. Like, this is the thing that's going to pop you out of your airplane, and have you out there. You want to make darn sure you've got a parachute. And that parachute is a belief in who you are, at least the beginning of one. You might not have it completely cemented in by the end of the month, by the end of this year, by the end of this decade. But if you begin it, there'll be less and less opportunity for your own BS to get in. So our old wounds are no longer crying points. So meaning, like, if this happened to me, I'm just going to keep telling the story, or I'm going to use that to justify how I'm treating myself today, or how I'm treating others. There's this cellular shift almost that's happening that is going to have it feel like an action point. So rather than feel weighed down or burdened by what we've gone through, it will be a sense of empowerment or a place of speaking from. And for this, some of us can really look to the movements that are going on. The Black Lives Matter movement and the veterans, and it's just all the places where people are saying no more. Like, stop. We're done talking about it. We're going to put into action, and we're going to move forward in whatever that might be. Hopefully a strategic and a well thought out space, as well as with feeling. But what you can do individually is, when those old wounds want to come up and your subconscious is kind of digging you into it and saying, well, I have every right to act this way. I was abused as a child, or I have, this is why I do things. It's like, no, you're choosing today, because you're no longer in that childhood. You're no longer hopefully in those situations. If you are, then that is a time to recognize that it's an active wound. It's not an old wound. I'm talking about old ones. So in the same regard, if you're listening to this, you're likely an adult. Love my teenagers who listen, and this would apply, but most of my audience are adults. And that means that you have to start taking choice here. Don't get caught in an undertow of old energy that's no longer serving you. So September, I'm really excited about it. And yeah, it feels like you're stuck inside an accordion sometimes, and you're being squished in between it. But it's also really empowering, exciting, on top of the slightly unnerving excitement feeling. So it's just a whole mix in there, isn't it? So what can you do? Write it out. Write out what your doubts are. Write out what's coming up. Write out where you're wanting to expand. Mike Dooley right now from tut.com has a 21-day writing prompt that's going on, and there's all kinds of these. But I decided when I knew this was coming up, I started it, just started. You can absolutely still sign up. So maybe avail yourself to something like that if you have a difficult time of sitting down and writing about and connecting to your emotions. So find yourself some prompts, because they can then get you into a space of this expansion that I'm talking about, because it's amazing what comes up when the first few sentences of BS are past you. Remember, I said BS is going. So you can write it out. If you write something out that, if you're not writing because you don't want anyone to find it, well, that's why we have shredders, and that's why we have burn pits if you're allowed to burn in your area. And so don't let that excuse of I'm afraid someone's going to find it be the reason. I've certainly written plenty of things, and even in that writing, there might be a phrase that I love. I will capture that and I'll put that in another document where I have some quotes or some stuff that I've written that I might want to reflect on later, but I don't necessarily want anyone reading what was in process, because it might not be something I would ever say to someone, but I got to get the emotions out. So I wrote it out. Shredders are amazing. You just want to, if you shred something like that, you want to take it out of your home. And if you burn it like in a fireplace or in a wood stove, you just want to remove those ashes too, because you don't want the energy sticking around. You could ask, as one of those prompts to writing, who am I and what do I want? I actually have a course on this that I taught years ago that I'm putting together for a virtual course, because there's so many great, there's so much exploration in that of who am I. That's always going to change. Just when you think you know who you are, hopefully there's some expansion happening and that's going to shift. So don't get attached to who am I. You could say, who am I in this moment? Who am I today? Who am I in relation with this person? Who am I in relation to self? Who am I in relation to spirit? And just explore all of that. Be willing to hear those voices in your head, and they will calm down. I promise you. So like I said earlier, getting grounded will be really important. Protein is important for this. If you're plant-based or pescatarian like I am, you get your protein through peas, through plants, through fish, through some dairy products. If you're not, if you're full-fledged, eat everything, get yourself a really good grass-fed burger. And it it will ground you. It's one of the things I miss most, but it will be the almost immediate grounding that it gives you, or steak if you don't like burger. But make sure it's good, organic, grass-fed. Vibration matters. So protein, almond butter, whatever works for you. Plenty of water. In expansion and cellular changes, we dehydrate very easily. So replenishment of that water, and ideally the amount of ounces that's half your body weight. That's a good math thing to do. Math can be fun. Plenty of sleep and movement of your body. Again, when we're having these pressure cooker moments, if you're not moving your body, all of that is building up within you, and it's creating some conflict. And I speak from personal experience. I know all of this stuff and I do it, but sometimes I can get so caught up in providing the information I forget to do it myself, and I walked myself into a pretty good back injury because I was not releasing the energy as often as I ought to, and oh boy, did it create a nice little bulge in L4. But hey, getting my meditation in while I'm doing my PT exercises. So, there's a gift in that. So plenty of sleep. Eye pillow can help a lot in that regard, as well as get the books, get the TVs out of your bedrooms. If you have a TV you can't remove, consider covering it with a cloth or a light blanket at night. just to turn down the frequency and unplug it if possible. So to that point, power naps. If you're someone who can power nap, I am so impressed with you. Do that. Really do. If you're not, set a gentle timer on your phone, turn it on do not disturb, so you don't get texts and all that kind of stuff, and then take 15 minutes to decompress. It'll work the same. We just need to power up a little bit. One of the other ways that will help you navigate this month is to set a small goal. And I am talking small. I'm talking maybe by the end of the day, all the laundry is washed, dried, folded, put away, and you get to feel pretty dang proud of yourself. Maybe you get out of the house if you're someone who's working from home, and at midday would be lovely, or mid-shift, whatever shift you're working, and go for a half an hour walk, whatever pace works for you. So set some goal and then meet it, and then set a new goal and then meet it, and then set a new goal and then meet it, because that's where the brain starts to calm down and says, oh, we can depend on her. She set that goal for doing the laundry. He set that goal for drinking his water. He finished the book he was reading or listening to on audio. Just something that reinforces and gives you a sense of belief in self, but also stability right now, because we're also in a time where, well, there's just a lot of unrest, and that's going to affect you as well. Reorganizing space is a big thing right now. And some of you might be doing that because you've decided to homeschool. And that's great. So you're setting up learning spaces for your kids, but you may also just feel the inclination. Like the space I'm recording from today is this, I guess it could be a closet, but since I moved into my space, it's been the rabbit's room. And I decided, you know what? He doesn't pay rent. So we're now going to share this space, because I felt the need a couple weeks ago to be going to an office, even though it's within my 750 square feet here. I felt like I needed to delineate my work from my home life. And maybe that's happening for you guys too, because you're now all working from home. Even though I already was, it's still something that impacts you. And I love it. The shift that it's made, and my ability to get to my standing desk more, and to, occasionally have the little bugger in here looking at me like, where'd my room go? So we're now cohabitating. He's the ultimate coworker. So the reorganization you may feel, you might want to smudge before or after. I do both because it doesn't take very long. And often if you're going to be moving stuff around, you're going to stir up energy. So you may as well clear the energy, move stuff as you stir it up, and then clear it again after. But you don't have to. At one point, before or after, please do it. So there will always be energy shifts that we experience. It's part of the physical, non-physical agreement we have. It's part of how we keep expanding and growing and becoming, I hope, more evolved souls, more caring, more connected, and a return to using our intuitive sense as our first sense. And this is part of it. So the more we pay attention to what's going on for us emotionally, energetically, mentally, causally, oh, there's a lot to pay attention to, but we can do it. We can do it. To that point of if you're choosing to have your kiddos stay home until we're stable in the disease process, this affects kids too. And sometimes we forget that they are impacted by energy, sometimes more so because they're such open vessels. So anything that I've said here will apply to kids. So they could have a small goal too. Maybe their small goal is to pick out their socks for the day, or to pick up their socks of the day. Having raised 3 of them, that's an issue. And, or, maybe they would like a goal of getting their physical education time in, or moving and grooving, as I like to call it. Pay attention to yourself first, get yourself solid, and then address it with them, and maybe discuss some of these things with them. Or if they're feeling like or you're noticing that they're having a little difficulty with the shifts, maybe you could ask them how they're feeling. What, if anything, are they picking up on? What would help them ground? Some kids, it's so amazing that some kids need to be on a trampoline to ground. And that fascinates me because there's air underneath it, unless you have one of those really cool in-ground ones. Oh, I would so love one of those. But maybe after the back heals. I don't think my condo association will let me, but it's worth a shot. But some kids need that bouncing to ground, and especially if there's any kind of brilliance in them for having, autism, or some kind of extrasensory wiring. Sometimes they need to bounce to let the energy out, but also to feel part of this world, a little bit of weightlessness, and then every time they hit the trampoline, it grounds them a little bit more. So there could be that, or get them out hiking or something along those lines. So as just a little aside there, let's remember that just because they're shorter does not mean that they're not being impacted by this. And this includes your not so short, newly heading off to college or high school in the way that this is being presented to them. So let's be compassionate, okay? So I wish you a wonderful September. I do hope that you are able to feel the relief that coming out of July and August has provided, the natural pressure release, if you will. And I hope you're able to use some of this. And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'm still doing the poll for a free session, and you can do that by leaving a review and then screenshotting it and sending it to info@vickibaird.com, info at vickibaird.com. And you can still go to the website, and there's a free meditation on there that you can download, connecting to yourself, your soul self. Forgetting what I called it, but it's on there and it's free. And you can download that, because the more connected we are to self, the easier these transitions will be. So thank you so much. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you in the next.
Thank you for listening to Intuition, Your First Sense. As always, please like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening to it. Leave a review and take a minute to share it with a friend. You can find me all across social media at Coach Vicki Baird, and you can book a virtual session with me from wherever you are in the world at vickibaird.com/booking. That's VICKIBAIRD.com/booking. Thank you again, and see you on the next episode.